Very good. It's 1:30. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We'll begin the liquor control meeting for this month. We'll start with agenda item number 1, approved minutes of the July 17th, 2019 meeting. If there's any changes or corrections, otherwise we'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2, review liquor applications. 2A, application to transfer a Class A alcoholic beverage license from FSB Associates LLC doing business as Cowboy Jacks to LNS Hospitality doing business as Cowboy Jacks located at 506 Broadway. Steve.
So when Mr. Erickson applied for the license at Cowboy Jacks, he did it under the same corporate structure as his Bulldog Tap was. And so what he's doing here is setting up a separate corporation. It's still the same owner, it's still just Dave Erickson, but it's setting up a separate corporate structure so that he can have those two businesses separated.
So it's basically just a clerical change, and so as far as the background check and things like that, there wasn't anything.
Nothing new came up. We went through the whole process and did the background check, but there's nothing new there.
Okay. Any other comments? Anybody wish to speak about that? Otherwise, we'll accept a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 2B, application to transfer a Class FA alcoholic beverage license from ERJ Dining 4 LLC doing business as Chili's to Brinker Restaurant Corporation doing business as Chili's Bar and Grill to be located at 3902 13th Avenue South. Steve.
This is it's one large chain. ERJ had about 114 Chili's throughout the nation, and Brinker has 1,600 Chili's, and so they're buying all of the Chili's that ERJ had. So we've done the background check, and everything came back fine. The local manager, who's been with Chili's for I think 24 years, is staying on, and so we don't anticipate seeing any change in operations locally. They're staying in the mall where they are, and so.
Any other comments, Chief? I guess from the background check, there really wasn't.
Everything's fine.
Okay. Any other comments from anybody? Otherwise, we'll accept a motion.
I'll move to approve.
I'll
Have a
second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 2C, application to issue a Class A club alcoholic beverage license to Downtown Community Partnership doing business as Downtown Community Partnership to be located at 207 4th Street North, Suite B. Steve.
So we received this application. The intent from the DCP was to provide the alcohol service at Block 9 Plaza when that gets up and running. The reason that they're applying at this time was so that they could respond to an RFP that they're anticipating that the Fargo Park District will be issuing here this fall. As we've been meeting as staff, and as recently as yesterday, we met with the DCP to discuss, some areas that are a little problematic. One of them, and probably at least in my mind, the one that is kind of the showstopper, is that we issue licenses to a person and a place, and that place needs to be a fixed structure. And the Block 9 Partnership, or the group that has the Block 9 Plaza, does not want to have a fixed structure, a permanent location there. They want to do everything in like portable, so that they can come in, set up for an event, and then maybe one time the event they set up the alcohol in one place and then another time another place. In order to have all that flexibility, the discussion that we had as recently as yesterday was that it looks like the best way to operate that is using the e-permits. And so as a walk-up item here, I received this earlier this morning from the DCP, where they're requesting that their application be withdrawn and not considered as an application for a license. And then they go through in their letter and talk about using the DCPE permit, and maybe using that, to a greater extent in that area. And what we were discussing yesterday, we actually met with the Park District, and are looking at, you know, having the DCP be the facilitator of who's gonna be in there, and that way they can kind of move it around and get different people throughout downtown. So,
And I guess, so if there's any comments, if the DCP wants to make comments, you're willing to at this time, if you don't mind? And if, while you're coming up, if you don't mind, Steve, so they couldn't have used their, like, the DCP has a location, but they couldn't use that for the location for the license, is that what you were saying?
yeah, so their current location, they are renting, or leasing space from the city of Fargo. And I'm not exactly sure what the part of the ordinance is, but there's a part of the ordinance that says that, you know, you can't have alcohol license at a government facility. I'm probably not quoting it exactly right, but.
Nancy, will you help clarify this very interesting situation?
So there's a provision regarding alcohol in public spaces, and it's also the lease that is entered into with the DCP, between the city of Fargo and the DCP. So that would be problematic, and particularly it's a temporary license. So really it needed to be at a location if you're going to license that location.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. So, I'm sorry, this will not take away from your time.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Lee Dorburns, I'm chair of the DCP board.
I'm Melissa Rodmacher. I'm the president of the DCP.
So I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit, expand on this a little bit more. As you know, we've had some meetings with staff and had actually a chance to meet with you and Grant and others leading up to this with the full intent of going through with this application. But we do really appreciate, you know, Nancy and Steve working with us here recently to make sure we understand the implications of that. And so that's obviously what's brought us here, kind of a last minute change in terms of our approach. However, we feel that this still fits very much in our wheelhouse, so to speak. The same things that we've shared in our application and also in the letter that we sent today. When we started this, we were approached by Fargo Parks, and we understand that over time came to the realization they were going to have to go through an RFP process. And as Steve mentioned, that's what really drove us to the timeline we're at right now, where we felt this kind of urgency to get something on the books so that we would have a license when it's time to respond to their RFP, which we expect sometime this fall or late summer. So from the standpoint of actually serving, that's not going to happen from maybe a year or so from now. But we saw this as a great opportunity because it really does fit into our mission, not so much alcohol sales, but the idea that there's events that are going to be happening at this location. We can support that and then help drive activity and business for the existing businesses that are downtown. So the great thing I think about the DCPE permit, if we're allowed to kind of translate that to this location, that we can still do that. We're able to actually have a direct impact on other breweries or bars or restaurants that would want to come in and do the E-permit, and they would do that through us, just like they already have through the street fair process that we've done and that Melissa and the team have led. So we're able to have this really great direct impact, which is our goal anyway, but then there's also this secondary impact of all the people that would come down for these events, kind of filtering out to the rest of the community before and after the event. So there's a lot of details that unfortunately we don't know yet exactly about logistics of that plaza. So there's, you know, we kind of all along here felt there was a little bit of a cart before the horse, but that really went back to the timing of things. It doesn't detract from the mission and the goals that we think we can fit into. So that's a pretty broad response, but certainly happy to answer any other more detailed questions about it.
Steve, do you have any questions or anything you would wish to clarify for us?
No, it's been, I think for everybody involved, it's been a bit of a learning process. You know, this is certainly a unique situation. As Lee said, it really felt like a cart before the horse kind of thing. And I do agree that, you know, they can still fulfill their mission of bringing people downtown and helping improve sales traffic to downtown business partners by facilitating the alcohol service at the events at the that the Park District would be hosting.
If I could I add one other comment?
Go ahead.
You know, in our discussions yesterday with Nancy and Steve, you know, we went back and looked at the DCPE permit language, and you know, I think we still need to determine if there's anything in that DCPE permit as it stands right now that may need any adjusting. we're not necessarily ready at this point to suggest what that would be. But I guess our ask today is if we could open a dialogue about that ability to use that DCP permit and kind of study the language of it more, you know, in conjunction with Steve and Nancy and any others, to determine if there is any need for a change in ordinance. There are a lot of things that we don't think would have to be changed. There may be a timing of notification for certain events that are within the plaza property lines that we might want to consider, but anyway, we're asking for the ability to have that dialogue and continue down that path.
Well, and I will say that's our staff. We've kind of had an open dialogue, and so that will just continue going forward. And I do think in the next year, there's going to be a lot more learned about what's going to be going on there too. So I think it's,
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
We agree. There'll be a lot of those so-called blanks that'll be filled in here over the next coming months as our understanding is that Fargo Parks will be getting a full-time operations manager on board that'll help schedule the events, would be a coordinator with us if we were chosen to help with that. They would coordinate with our full-time person. And so, you know, a lot of that will get kind of flushed out through the process.
And if I could add to that, I think that's right in our wheelhouse. I think, you know, once that RFP comes out, it's a great opportunity for the DCP to stand up and say, hey, we want to be a good partner. We want to make sure this plaza is activated properly and it's a great asset to the community and it's run right. With the liquor learnings that we've had with the open container and the partnerships with the city and the police department and what we've done with the DCP e-permit, we hope that we are the chosen partner because we've shown that we are responsible and we can do it right.
And I guess from the past experience, Corks and Canvas and the street fair, I think we haven't had issues with, I don't know, maybe the chief has it more, and we can maybe look at that, but I think it's been good. I think you've handled it well, and I think we've had less issues during the street fair than during a regular week, so it's kind of interesting how it goes, so. Any other comments or questions? So, Steve, what are we going to be doing here? Are we just going to be continuing this, or are we just going to vote for this application what should we do?
Well, we received a request to withdraw their application, and so it's already been advertised to be a public hearing at the city commission, so it'll be listed as a public hearing, but then it'll say withdrawn.
Okay.
So, do we need a motion to accept the withdrawal, do you think?
I don't think it would hurt to do that so that it's on a public record that it's no longer being considered.
Is there any further discussion? And if anybody else would want to come up and make any comments, they're welcome to do so. Otherwise, we'll accept a motion.
A motion to accept the withdrawal.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll
Appreciate
keep the dialogue open.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to number 3, direct city attorney to prepare ordinance changes reflected in the penalty matrix as recommended by the police chief. And Chief, maybe you want to start it off, and then Nancy can add comments too.
So this is just a draft that I supplied for liquor control. It's a result of previous meetings that we've had, and we've asked for input from the industry and for public input and have really not gotten too much for input on this that would cause me to change anything. So I'm ready to take that next step forward of working with the city attorney.
So Nancy, do you want to make a few comments too? We'd appreciate that.
I sure can. My comments would be, we've met a number of times. As you know, there was a task force that came out with a matrix some time ago. Rather than make all the changes to the ordinances, we did go back and establish what is presently in the ordinances, what should be changed, what are the recommendations. So that's been advertised a couple of times. There have been very few comments. We've sat down and kind of talked about where do we go from here. And the chief has indicated a desire to not only have fewer violations that result in revocation, but also a shorter period of time, and then have a rolling kind of set situation that if there's a violation within a certain period of time, it would obviously act as a concurrent or subsequent violation as to number 3, 4, or 5. So we'd be looking at putting it down from 7 to 5 violations and shortening the time to a 12-month period rather than 18-month period, and having a rolling violation. And so I would be happy to work with the chief and do those changes and come back either to this board or the city commission directly, because they would be ordinance changes that you're approving essentially at this time.
So Chief, what did you have in your mind? What would happen next? Do you think this will come back to us, or do you think we have Nancy work on it and then it goes to the city commission?
Well, that's the question I wanted to pose here, because I know working on this and making some of these changes takes a bit of work. And I think maybe the next step would be to take this to city commission as it is now and say, are you comfortable with directing the city attorney to make the changes in ordinance? Because otherwise, we could be doing a lot of work on this for nothing if the city commission says, no, we're not interested in doing that.
That's a good point, and I guess that would be another opportunity for us to republish this, to show people what the proposed changes would be, and so then if they want to have opportunity for comment, I think that's a good idea.
And they've had opportunity for comment several months now, and then through any ordinance change, we have the readings where they have opportunity for comment again.
Sure. But I would recommend that this body vote on it in terms of your position moving forward to city commission too.
If that's your motion, I'll second it.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we take the draft as submitted, and we submit it to the city commission for consideration of directing the city attorney to make ordinance changes.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Anybody in the audience wish to make any comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 4, request from Shields Arena to amend Class N license to allow alcohol throughout the facility. Steve, you can start us off with that one?
Sure, and I do see John and Nick here from Shields Arena. So we received a request from Shields Arena with the Class N license. Currently, the N is set up so that beer and wine are allowed throughout the facility. Spirits, mixed drinks are only allowed in the suites and in the bars. Having discussions with the representatives from Shields, they said that they've seen a couple of cases where, if someone's in the bar and the game is starting and they've got a mixed drink, they'll just quick, down it rather than being able to just carry it into the facility and then enjoy it at their leisure. They'll just kind of slam it. Secondly, they said that there are cases where maybe a parent is stopped in a bar and then they want to go out and watch their kids, make sure kids are behaving, that kind of thing, and they can't take the drink with them. And so that and just what's going on in other facilities that are similar to theirs throughout the area, they felt that maybe they would like to propose these changes. And so that's what's before you. John and Nick want to...
If you guys want to come up and use that podium, if you want to make a few comments, that'd be great.
We did talk about a number of things that they were willing to do, but as we kind of looked at them and considered them, and we did reach out to the Fargo Dome and to the Red Hawks, the other people that have the N license, and when it came down to it, Nancy just put together a couple of very minor changes, and it seems like it would work for this if it's something that this board wants to consider.
Yeah, well,
Go ahead.
thank you for having us here. I'm John Crum. This is Nick Daly. I'll first let Nick kind of touch on a few pieces, then I'll comment after that.
Yeah, thanks for having us today. I kind of had a speech written, but Steve took all my talking points already. Yeah, we kind of see at the arena, like Steve said, when mom and dad get an alcoholic beverage and their kids want to go play the next game, because we've added a successful concourse environment with games and balloon animals and live music that's became very popular, and we just kind of want to build on that. Not everybody wants a beer or a wine. They're having their alcoholic beverage, and we don't want to have, when we stop mom and dad and their kids take off, it puts us in a tough situation. So we looked around to what the other teams in our league were doing and some changes around the tri-state area, and we kind of want to just be current with that. And we met with a couple of you to collaborate some ideas on what would be best to go about doing that, serving in a clear plastic cup, continuing to keep everybody current with their server training, and making sure everyone's 21 years or older if they're going to be serving alcohol.
Yeah, one notable piece that was added as well that I think is a good amendment to the end is that it's a limit of 2 drinks, regardless if it's beer, wine, alcoholic drinks, which currently isn't in there. I think that's another way to police it. As I went through, North Dakota is one of the only states, and we're one of the few areas that doesn't allow distilled spirits or alcohol. Throughout Iowa, South Dakota, Wisconsin, they all do allow it. For us, it's really about continuing to enhance the entertainment. If you've been to the building, we've been remodeling, we've taken out some suites, we've added what we call an on-ice bar, but that has had these challenges where we're stopping people. Our goal is to continue to do some of that, and we want to make it the most entertaining environment out there for everyone, kids and their parents, and we still think it's very family friendly. We're just looking for this simple amendment to make it a little more enjoyable for everybody.
Very good, thank you. Any questions from anybody? Basically, Nancy, could you talk about the changes that you made? And we have it redlined in front of us, and so if you could summarize that, that'd be great.
Yes, very minor changes. In where alcoholic beverages were sold and consumed, there was a split between the concourse area and seating arena and the private suites and other designated areas. I eliminated the geographical designation and indicated that they would be able to be served throughout, so there is no geographical limitation for any of the types of alcohol that would be sold. The distilled spirits would be in a clear glass, indicating in some manner that it is alcohol in that container, and added the 2 alcoholic beverages per person per time that they acquire them. So again, the last change is that anybody that would be an employee must be 21, must have server training, and would be able to serve both all beer, wine, sparkling, and alcoholic beverages.
Very good, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments?
You know, I had a conversation with somebody that is a season ticket holder up at the Ralph Engelstad Arena, and you know, they talked about how in the old days, people went to the hockey games. You know, there was no alcohol service. They went to the hockey games because they were hockey fans. And I think what we're seeing now is that people go to the Ralph and they go to the Shields Arena because it's an entertainment facility. It's not necessarily just the hockey. And so, you know, I don't really see a problem with this. You know, we're gonna obviously ask that their ushers be maybe a little more aware of what's going on and kind of watching things, you know, a little closer, you know, and that type of thing. I don't think it's anything that has to be in the ordinance, but that would probably be a non-written expectation, is that, you know, if they see something, they say something, and I know your staff are well trained with that type of thing. So.
Can I ask you a question? Do you, like at the Fargo Dome, they have a texting system for if people have a security issue? Do you have something like that at the Shields Arena? Or if people have some type of security thing? And not to put you on the spot, but it just seemed like a good idea.
We're a little different than the Fargo Dome from a size standpoint. We have an usher in each section, you know, so they are expected to be available for anyone. Then each of them have a radio on. So that would be how we do it. We don't have a texting system, but we could definitely look into that.
Okay, thank you. And
There's also an usher at every exit as well.
Okay, Chief?
You know, if we're talking really about, there's different types of alcohol already allowed in this situation, and so we're just allowing a different type of alcohol, a little stronger type of alcohol. I just have a question for Nancy. Is there any conflict with state law on this that you can see?
There is no more conflict with state law than as is presently in existence. So we've really, the N license allowing the minors in the area has been permitted, and it's an enforcement issue, but by ordinance, we're permitting that to happen. It doesn't change at all with respect to the type of alcohol sold.
Any other comments? And anybody from the public wish to make any comments? Otherwise, we will accept a motion.
I would move that we direct the city attorney to make the recommended changes.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. And number 5, server training changes. Steve?
So after the last couple of meetings that we've had, we did meet as staff and discussed our current server training situations and where maybe we're coming up a little short. And a couple of things that we're contemplating or looking at are to do the compliance, to make sure that they're getting their server training on a quarterly basis instead of annually, so that we'll stay in contact with the facilities a little more often. And secondly, you may see something down the road come up. We're still talking about it, but similar to like the annual meeting attendance, once we put a penalty in there, we saw the attendance go way up and we didn't have as many problems. And so we're kind of considering putting it back on the businesses, that it's their responsibility to make sure that their employees are server trained, and that if we find that they're not meeting that there would be a monetary penalty involved. Those are the things that I think we're considering. Larry's out here. Was there anything else that I missed that we talked about, or was those the big things? Those are the big things, okay.
And I guess we'll have opportunity for comment. To me, when he talks about having the business be responsible, I also think the individual person that's supposed to have their license, that should be responsible in some way too. Maybe not to the same degree, but.
And we do have the online option for people too, right, Steve?
Right.
And then, I stuck around last meeting just to see if any of the industry people were interested in conducting that training. So far, nobody's very interested in pursuing that path, but if somebody does, or they'd like to talk to me, I'd be more than happy to talk to you.
Very good. So as far as the changes, do we need to take any action?
Not at this point. We're still discussing how to facilitate some of these things.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, eventually, especially if we put in some kind of a penalty for not being compliant, that there would be ordinance changes involved with that. So it'll continue to come forward, but we just wanted, I guess, mostly to let you know that we're still looking at that and trying to figure out a way to do a better job of making sure that we're meeting that goal.
Very good. That's it. Anything anybody else would like to add? Otherwise, that's the end of our agenda. It is 1:57. Thank you for coming. Have a good afternoon.